Yes, thank you. Okay. Buddham sharanam gacchami, dharmam sharanam gacchami, sangam sharanam gacchami. Buddham sharanam gacchami, dharmam sharanam gacchami, sangam sharanam gacchami. Buddham sharanam gacchami, dharmam sharanam gacchami, sangam sharanam gacchami. All right. Welcome everybody to Wednesday Night Mantras. We are on week 2 of our White Tārā, Sita Tārā practice. And so we began last week and we spent some time talking about what the mantra actually does. The idea of, traditionally speaking, or sort of on a surface or very generalized level, people think of this as being a healing mantra. And in particular, a longevity mantra, one that is intended to extend your lifespan. But I did discuss why that's probably not really what it is, but that what it is actually, in fact, much better than that, in the sense of it's not increasing the number of years that you're going to live, but it is increasing the amount of life in your years, right? So you're going to live however long you're going to live. And that's a subject for another day, perhaps, to talk about those kinds of karmas. But the question is, what's your quality of life? How much are you actually living during that time? And so, really thinking the fullness of life that we'll see here, that's written out in the mantra, is maybe referring to actually living a full life, living a really rich life, which is not really what we tend to do, right? So bringing us into, what it means to be living a full life is to be living a present life, one in which your consciousness is existing, at least for the most part, in the present moment, and being here in this location at this time and inside this body. That's when you can experience life to the greatest degree, and you can get the most done really there, in terms of consciousness work that we are trying to do. And so this is, talked about over and over again by various teachers, going back through the centuries, most recently, obvious examples being Ram Dass's Be Here Now, or Eckhart Tolle's The Power of Now. Really, that's really the central message that he has, is, about existing in the present moment. So the energy of this mantra is designed to pull your consciousness into the present so you can experience your life more fully and have a more rich experience of that. So I go into more detail about that in the previous lecture, so you can go to my YouTube channel and check that out if you missed it last week. Now, what I want to do today, before we dive into the mantra itself, is to just go through it word by word and talk about what the actual words are and what they're doing. And we'll kind of see, you can kind of see why I get this sense for that this is really the purpose of this mantra. And we're going to do that today. That's all we'll really work on today. And then next week we're going to talk, for the third lecture, we'll talk about Tāra as a divine concept, really, what's going on with Tāra and or the Tāras, because there are multiple, and how we can kind of approach them and experience them, with White Tārā being one of the more popular in there. So let me go ahead and share the screen with the mantra on it. Boom, there's that. And get rid of all this other stuff on my screen that's very distracting. Okay. So on the left here, we've got an image of White Tārā. It's a very lovely drawing of her, shown in seated in lotus position. So very much in a transcendental state, right? Sort of existing beyond perhaps the boundaries of our normal experience, which is actually very different from the other most popular version of Tara, which is Shyama Tārā, or green Tārā, in which one of her feet, she'll have one leg up in a seated meditation position like this, but then the other leg is down with the foot, like the toes just touching the earth, right? That's green Tāra's position. And what that's describing is, with green Tārā, you're talking about something where there's a much more of an imminent kind of action that's occurring in the world, right? And she's much more involved with sort of day-to-day, difficulties that we're going through in one way or another. White Tārā, on the other hand, is inviting us to kind of step out of those boundaries and enter into a more expanded concept of our reality. One of the interesting attributes that she has here, first of all, there's the, what is that? That's her right arm there, is going into the Varada Mudra, which is holding her hand down this way. And that's the giving mudra. So deities have a certain number of hand positions that they use, and when you meditate on them, they can impart a certain kind of an energy to you. This one, the Varada Mudra, is very much of a like an imparting or a giving of a gift of some kind. It's very much associated with Lakshmi, for example, in terms of the abundance and the prosperity ideas. But here, we see that White Tārā is indeed attempting to give us something. Whether or not we are willing to receive it is a different story, but she's trying, right? She's doing her best. And of course, the gift that she's attempting to give us is this state of presence, right? Being in the present moment, where we can live our lives in a very full sort of a way. Her other hand here is holding, there's kind of this very thin stem that kind of goes up in a sort of an S shape and comes up here to this interesting kind of an image here where you have this lotus flower that's in full bloom. And then on top of it, here is the kind of lotus flower that's still in a bud, right? So the lotus flower being the symbol of enlightenment, right? The concept around that symbol is one in which, the lotus flower is the seed of the lotus flower is planted in like the most awful, stinky, slimy swamps, right? Down in the mud, in the muck. The seed is planted down there, and then it, when it's ready, it cracks open and a shoot comes up and works its way up through the mud and into the kind of brackish water, and up through this dirty water until it hits the surface of the water. And then once it's on the surface, then it can open up into this beautiful flower. And that's sort of a grand metaphor for our own spiritual journey. We sort of kind of start out in the mud and the muck and the dirty water of everyday life, of material existence, and we work our way up through it to reach the light, so to speak, at which point we're able to bloom into our true nature. Okay. So here we've got the lotus flower, which is in a bud, which is sort of the unrealized potential for this enlightenment. And then the fully opened flower, which is representing the full the fullness of it. And these two things are existing in the image at the same time, right? Which is kind of asking you in many ways to don't worry about either of these things. They're both there now, right? You are simultaneously already enlightened, and you're also just as unenlightened as you've ever been, right? That's all happening right now at the same time. And you don't need to worry about it. You're somewhere maybe in between these two things. And when this flower is supposed to bloom and open up, that's, that'll happen when it needs to happen. So, you just keep working and moving forward. You can't put a timetable on it, right? And that's like part of the whole point here is, when you're being present, you're not worrying about stuff like that. You're not thinking about like, well, when's it going to happen? You're just doing what you do because it's what you feel called to do, and you feel called to experience that. So lots of very, you could spend, definitely a long period of time talking about all of the various aspects. These images of that come from the Buddhist tradition are extremely rich in symbology. The Vedic ones are as well. Where everything has some specific, very particular kind of meaning. I only know, I only have memorized a certain number of them, and there's much more going on here than I could even tell you. But let's move over to the mantra. So first of all, we discussed this a little bit last week, but let's go back over it to some extent. There are many different tāras, and all of the tāras have a mantra. And all of the Tārā mantras are based on sort of a root mantra, which is Om Tāre, Tuttāre, Ture, svāhā. Om Tāre, Tuttāre, Ture, svāhā. So when you're differentiating one Tārā from another, so in this case, the specific White Tārā Mantra, then you have Om Tāre, Tuttāre, Ture, and then there's something else, right, which is the specific part for White Tārā, and then the svāhā at the end. And if you're working with someone else, right, like a, if you're working with someone else, a different Tārā, then, there would be some other words there that would be related specifically to that Tārā. Now, there are, this maybe I'll discuss more next week, but there is a Tārā that we just use that root mantra for, Om Tāre, Tuttāre, Ture, svāhā, and we do refer to her as Green Tārā, but there's something special going on there. Just know that most of the Tāras, basically all of the Tāras like White Tārā, have this kind of structure to them. So Om, of course, is the sound of unity consciousness. It is the sound which is representing the universe, the infinite consciousness that is the universe as a whole. So when we become enlightened, we merge into this sound Om. And so the mantra wants to come out of that sound. It wants to come out of unity consciousness and then be manifested. So we need to have the Om at the beginning of the mantra. Almost all mantras begin with this sound for that very reason. You want to connect into unity consciousness first, and then allow the mantra to be manifest. Now, the root parts of the mantra then, tāre is the vocative form of the name Tārā. So Sanskrit, of course, uses declensions on nouns like Latin, if you took Latin at any point in time, where the case of the noun is determined by an ending on the word. It's rather different than the way that it works in English. So tāre then is the vocative form, which means calling out. Vocative is where you're saying, hey, right? And in fact, it does indeed use this sound, a, on it. The word hey in Sanskrit means exactly the same thing as it does in English. Right? Hey, right? Like that. And in this case, tāre, when we put that a on the end of the name, then that represents a calling out to the goddess, Tārā, trying to get her attention, like waving like this, to say, hey, I'm here, check me out. And then tuttāre, so of course here we've got again, tāre, calling out to Tārā again, but with this tut in front of it is saying strong, right? It's an indication of strength. So Tārā, strong, Tārā, Tārā, and then tut, who's strong, and ture means quick. So Tārā, who is both strong and quick. And then if we were just going on to the svāhā part here, this is a kind of an I surrender myself sort of a saying, like, I need help. Can you come in and arrange things for me so that whatever it is that I'm going through will be taken care of, rather than there's a couple of other words like that's not the right spot, sweetie. We have thunder here, unfortunately, and she doesn't like it very much, so she's trying to find a good place to hide. Shanti, hey, come here. Lay down. Lay down. That's good. Yeah. Lay down. All the way. Here you go. Thank you. All right. So the svāhā is going to indicate like a surrendering of control or releasing of control. And that's rather important for this particular mantra and what this mantra is doing. Living in the present moment is really an exercise in surrendering that control over the results of whatever is going on. So we kind of need to be able to do that in order to really experience it. So there are other words that we might use. Namaha or namah is one where it's not so much of a surrendering of control, it's a little bit more of like a partnership that is occurring, where we are intentionally working on one thing or another. But control issues are ones that we use frequently to shift ourselves out of the present moment. We're always worrying about how we can control what's going to happen to us in particular, or how we can regain control over our lives from things that have happened to us in the past. So we want to get out of that habit. So ordinarily, om tāre, tuttāre, ture, svāhā. It's just sort of a very generalized, like, Tārā, I need you to be strong and I need you to be quick. I'm surrendering control, just in a general, it could be any number of things. You set the intention around that. But here, when we're adding the White Tārā words to it, then we have a particular thing in mind that we need White Tārā's help with, or it's the gift that she's available to give. So on this second line after ture, we have this word mamāyuḥ, mamāyuḥ. So this is a combination of two words, mama and ayus. Has a declension on the end of it here that turns it into ayuḥ. So mama means my, and ayuḥ or ayus means life, my life. And that connects to this word on the third line, which is pronounced puṣṭim. Puṣṭim. This is like a retroflex sh sound with the tongue curled back, and then similarly with the t. Puṣṭim. Puṣṭim means increase or a cause to multiply or make it expand, right? Something along those lines. It's a word. Puṣṭi is actually one of the names of Lakshmi, and has to do with this kind of expansion or increase or growing greater than what the state that something is in right at this particular time. So here we have this particular sound, puṣṭim and mamāyuḥ, increase my life, right? So that's the motive or the mechanism that's actually there to increase your life. And it doesn't say, again, it doesn't say increase the amount of time that I have to live, right? It just says increase my life or bring more fullness to my life. So that's this word puṣṭim can mean fullness, right? An increase or an expansion of fullness. This word here so we're on the third line still. The first word puṇya, and then jñāna. Puṇya means merit, like good or positively charged karma. Like the puṇya is sort of like your reward for being a good person. Right. It's this idea. The word that's usually used to translate it is merit, but it generally means that you're sort of accruing positively charged energy that will fulfill itself or manifest it as circumstances that are going to be useful for your spiritual development. And then jnana, of course, means knowledge. Or understanding, right? So it's connected directly to this idea of wisdom or puṇya, and ultimately here jnana is referring not to just kind of common forms of knowledge like you might go to school to learn particular subjects, right? It's the knowledge that you're seeking here is who is the nature of your true self, who you really are. That's the only really important knowledge that's out there. So the puṇya and the jnana are really the subject of the other parts. Increase my life so I can accrue more puṇya and jnana, so that I have the ability to gain more merit and more knowledge about myself, right? So when we're wrapped up in all of the doings that have to do with stuff that's not actually present to you, then it becomes hard to focus on these two things, the puṇya and the jnana. So you want to increase your life or increase the fullness of your life so that the merit and the knowledge can come to you naturally. And that's something that happens when you're existing in the present moment. And then kuru is this wonderful word that sort of is like the translations are not really awesome on this word. I like to think of it really as just being a word that sort of sets something in motion, right? It's like you've kind of stated this desire here to increase my life, to be able to gain more puṇya and jnana, and then the kuru is something that like creates a movement forward of that energy. It starts that process going. It's oftentimes translated, the word kuru is translated as do it, right? So it's kind of something that lends itself to this concept of, let's make it happen, let's get that energy in motion. Let's allow the flow to begin. Right. So, tāre, tuttāre, ture. Om, or unity consciousness. Tārā, strong Tārā, who is very quick to act. It's one of Tāra's primary attributes is that she's always like right there, ready to help. Like the action is almost always immediate. Increase or bring to fullness my life so that I can accrue more puṇya, merit, and jnana, knowledge. Let it be so, or put it in motion. That's a good one. Let it be so, kuru. And I surrender myself to this process. The svāhā at the end here, it's like you've created this whole thing here going up. Like you could kind of end the mantra in many ways right here with the kuru, right? You've set the process in motion. You've kind of stated what it needs to be, or what you're really stating here is that you're connecting with the gift that White Tārā has to offer, right? You're stating that you get it and you're requesting it. And the kuru is putting that into motion. But now what the svāhā does, which is really important here with this idea of surrendering, is with the svāhā, you're setting it into motion, and then with the svāhā, you're saying, I'm going to get out of the way now, right? And allow this to occur. right? I'm not gonna be an obstacle to this process in any way. I'm just gonna step aside and let that happen. It's been one of the most important processes in my own spiritual practice, and has a great deal to do with, you know, if I'm capable or you know, have any gifts to share with people. The reason that I have those gifts is because I have developed a sense of being able to get out of the way and allowing the energy to flow through me, whether it's through my voice in chanting or in teaching, or however that works. And, you know, my small self, my limited self, is kind of over here just sort of observing that process, right, without getting in the way. That's part of what you can think of svāhā as being. It's like a letting go, a releasing of attachment to however this is going to play itself out, really. So whilst the mechanism of the mantra is kind of completing itself with the kuru here, the svāhā becomes a very important addendum to it, which is to say, I'm gonna step aside and allow this energy to flow and do what it needs to do without my ego intervening in the process. So, Om tāre, tuttāre, ture, mamāyuḥ, puṇya, jñāna, puṣṭim, kuru, svāhā. Om tāre, tuttāre, ture, mamāyuḥ, puṇya, jñāna, puṣṭim, kuru, svāhā. All right, so I'm going to come back here and just ask if anybody has any questions before we get started. Feel free to ask. You can go ahead and unmute yourself and ask any questions you may have. At this point, yeah, we're all good? Okay, in that case, I will bring that back up. And we can get started here. Om tāre, tuttāre, ture, mamāyuḥ, puṇya, jñāna, puṣṭim, kuru, svāhā. Om tāre, tuttāre, ture, mamāyuḥ, puṇya, jñāna, puṣṭim, kuru, svāhā. Om tāre, tuttāre, ture, mamāyuḥ, puṇya, jñāna, puṣṭim, kuru, svāhā. Om tāre, tuttāre, ture, mamāyuḥ, puṇya, jñāna, puṣṭim, kuru, svāhā. Om tāre, tuttāre, ture, mamāyuḥ, puṇya, jñāna, puṣṭim, kuru, svāhā. Om tāre, tuttāre, ture, mamāyuḥ, puṇya, jñāna, puṣṭim, kuru, svāhā. Om tāre, tuttāre, ture, mamāyuḥ, puṇya, jñāna, puṣṭim, kuru, svāhā. Om tāre, tuttāre, ture, mamāyuḥ, puṇya, jñāna, puṣṭim, kuru, svāhā. Om tāre, tuttāre, tuttāre, ture mamāyuḥ, puṇya jñāna puṣṭim, kuru svāhā. Om tāre tuttāre, ture mamāyuḥ, puṇya jñāna puṣṭim, kuru svāhā. Om tāre tuttāre, ture mamāyuḥ, puṇya jñāna puṣṭim, kuru svāhā. Om tāre tuttāre, ture mamāyuḥ, puṇya jñāna puṣṭim, kuru svāhā. Om tāre tuttāre, ture mamāyuḥ, puṇya jñāna puṣṭim, kuru svāhā. Om tāre tuttāre, ture mamāyuḥ, puṇya jñāna puṣṭim, kuru svāhā. Om tāre tuttāre, ture mamāyuḥ, puṇya jñāna puṣṭim, kuru svāhā. Om tāre tuttāre, ture mamāyuḥ, puṇya jñāna puṣṭim, kuru svāhā. Om tāre tuttāre, ture mamāyuḥ, puṇya jñāna puṣṭim, kuru svāhā. Om tāre tuttāre, ture mamāyuḥ, puṇya jñāna puṣṭim, kuru svāhā. Om tāre tuttāre, ture mamāyuḥ, puṇya jñāna puṣṭim, kuru svāhā. Om tāre tuttāre, ture mamāyuḥ, puṇya jñāna puṣṭim, kuru svāhā. Om tāre tuttāre, ture mamāyuḥ, puṇya jñāna puṣṭim, kuru svāhā. Om tāre tuttāre, ture mamāyuḥ, puṇya jñāna puṣṭim, kuru svāhā. Om tāre tuttāre, ture mamāyuḥ, puṇya jñāna puṣṭim, kuru svāhā. Om tāre tuttāre, ture mamāyuḥ, puṇya jñāna puṣṭim, kuru svāhā. Om tāre tuttāre, ture mamāyuḥ, puṇya jñāna puṣṭim, kuru svāhā. Om tāre tuttāre, ture mamāyuḥ, puṇya jñāna puṣṭim, kuru svāhā. Om tāre tuttāre, ture mamāyuḥ, puṇya jñāna puṣṭim, kuru svāhā. Om tāre tuttāre, ture mamāyuḥ, puṇya jñāna puṣṭim, kuru svāhā. Om tāre tuttāre, ture mamāyuḥ, puṇya jñāna puṣṭim, kuru svāhā. Om tāre tuttāre, ture mamāyuḥ, puṇya jñāna puṣṭim, svāhā. Om tāre tuttāre, ture mamāyuḥ, puṇya jñāna puṣṭim, kuru svāhā. Om tāre tuttāre, ture mamāyuḥ, puṇya jñāna puṣṭim, kuru svāhā. Om tāre tuttāre, ture mamāyuḥ, puṇya jñāna puṣṭim, kuru svāhā. Om tāre tuttāre, ture mamāyuḥ, puṇya jñāna puṣṭim, kuru svāhā. Om tāre tuttāre, ture mamāyuḥ, puṇya jñāna puṣṭim, kuru svāhā. Om tāre tuttāre, ture mamāyuḥ, puṇya jñāna puṣṭim, kuru svāhā. Om tāre tuttāre, ture mamāyuḥ, puṇya jñāna puṣṭim, kuru svāhā. Om tāre tuttāre, ture mamāyuḥ, puṇya jñāna puṣṭim, kuru svāhā. Om tāre tuttāre, ture mamāyuḥ, puṇya jñāna puṣṭim, kuru svāhā. Om tāre tuttāre, ture mamāyuḥ, puṇya jñāna puṣṭim, kuru svāhā. Om tāre tuttāre, ture mamāyuḥ, puṇya jñāna puṣṭim, kuru svāhā. Om tāre tuttāre, ture mamāyuḥ, puṇya jñāna puṣṭim, kuru svāhā. Om tāre tuttāre, ture mamāyuḥ, puṇya jñāna puṣṭim, kuru svāhā. Om tāre tuttāre, ture mamāyuḥ, puṇya jñāna puṣṭim, kuru svāhā. Om tāre tuttāre, ture mamāyuḥ, puṇya jñāna puṣṭim, kuru svāhā. Om tāre tuttāre, ture mamāyuḥ, puṇya jñāna puṣṭim, kuru svāhā. Om tāre tuttāre, ture mamāyuḥ, puṇya jñāna puṣṭim, kuru svāhā. Om tāre tuttāre, ture mamāyuḥ, puṇya jñāna puṣṭim, kuru svāhā. Om tāre tuttāre, ture mamāyuḥ, puṇya jñāna puṣṭim, kuru svāhā. Om tāre tuttāre, ture mamāyuḥ, puṇya jñāna puṣṭim, kuru svāhā. Om tāre tuttāre, ture mamāyuḥ, puṇya jñāna puṣṭim, kuru svāhā. Om tāre tuttāre, tuttāre, ture mamāyuḥ, puṇya jñāna puṣṭim, kuru svāhā. Om tāre tuttāre, ture mamāyuḥ, puṇya jñāna puṣṭim, kuru svāhā. Om tāre tuttāre, ture mamāyuḥ, puṇya jñāna puṣṭim, kuru svāhā. Om tāre tuttāre, ture mamāyuḥ, puṇya jñāna puṣṭim, kuru svāhā. Om tāre tuttāre, ture mamāyuḥ, puṇya jñāna puṣṭim, kuru svāhā. Om tāre tuttāre, ture mamāyuḥ, puṇya jñāna puṣṭim, kuru svāhā. Om tāre tuttāre, ture mamāyuḥ, puṇya jñāna puṣṭim, kuru svāhā. Om tāre tuttāre, ture mamāyuḥ, puṇya jñāna puṣṭim, kuru svāhā. Om tāre tuttāre, ture mamāyuḥ, puṇya jñāna puṣṭim, kuru svāhā. Om tāre tuttāre, ture mamāyuḥ, puṇya jñāna puṣṭim, kuru svāhā. Om tāre tuttāre, ture mamāyuḥ, puṇya jñāna puṣṭim, kuru svāhā. Om tāre tuttāre, ture mamāyuḥ, puṇya jñāna puṣṭim, kuru svāhā. Om tāre tuttāre, ture mamāyuḥ, puṇya jñāna puṣṭim, kuru svāhā. Om tāre tuttāre, ture mamāyuḥ, puṇya jñāna puṣṭim, kuru svāhā. Om tāre tuttāre, ture mamāyuḥ, puṇya jñāna puṣṭim, kuru svāhā. Om tāre tuttāre, ture mamāyuḥ, puṇya jñāna puṣṭim, kuru svāhā. Om tāre tuttāre, ture mamāyuḥ, puṇya jñāna puṣṭim, kuru svāhā. Om tāre tuttāre, ture mamāyuḥ, puṇya jñāna puṣṭim, kuru svāhā. Om tāre tuttāre, ture mamāyuḥ, puṇya jñāna puṣṭim, kuru svāhā. Om tāre tuttāre, ture mamāyuḥ, puṇya jñāna puṣṭim, kuru svāhā. Om tāre tuttāre, ture mamāyuḥ, puṇya jñāna puṣṭim, kuru svāhā. Om tāre tuttāre, ture mamāyuḥ, puṇya jñāna puṣṭim, kuru svāhā. Om tāre tuttāre, ture mamāyuḥ, puṇya jñāna puṣṭim, kuru svāhā. Om tāre tuttāre, ture mamāyuḥ, puṇya jñāna puṣṭim, kuru svāhā. Om tāre tuttāre, ture mamāyuḥ, puṇya jñāna puṣṭim, kuru svāhā. Om tāre tuttāre, ture mamāyuḥ, puṇya jñāna puṣṭim, kuru svāhā. Om tāre tuttāre, ture mamāyuḥ, puṇya jñāna puṣṭim, kuru svāhā. Om tāre tuttāre, ture mamāyuḥ, puṇya jñāna puṣṭim, kuru svāhā. Om tāre tuttāre, ture mamāyuḥ, puṇya jñāna puṣṭim, kuru svāhā. Om tāre tuttāre, ture mamāyuḥ, puṇya jñāna puṣṭim, kuru svāhā. Om tāre tuttāre, ture mamāyuḥ, puṇya jñāna puṣṭim, kuru svāhā. Om tāre tuttāre, ture mamāyuḥ, puṇya jñāna puṣṭim, kuru svāhā. Om tāre tuttāre, ture mamāyuḥ, puṇya jñāna puṣṭim, kuru svāhā. Om tāre tuttāre, ture mamāyuḥ, puṇya jñāna puṣṭim, kuru svāhā. Om tāre tuttāre, ture mamāyuḥ, puṇya jñāna puṣṭim, kuru svāhā. Om tāre tuttāre, ture mamāyuḥ, puṇya jñāna puṣṭim, kuru svāhā. Om tāre tuttāre, ture mamāyuḥ, puṇya jñāna puṣṭim, kuru svāhā. Om tāre tuttāre, ture mamāyuḥ, puṇya jñāna puṣṭim, kuru svāhā. Om tāre tuttāre, ture mamāyuḥ, puṇya jñāna puṣṭim, kuru svāhā. Om tāre tuttāre, ture mamāyuḥ, puṇya jñāna puṣṭim, kuru svāhā. Om tāre tuttāre, ture mamāyuḥ, puṇya jñāna puṣṭim, kuru svāhā. Om tāre tuttāre, ture mamāyuḥ, puṇya jñāna puṣṭim, kuru svāhā. Om tāre tuttāre, ture mamāyuḥ, puṇya jñāna puṣṭim, kuru svāhā. Om tāre tuttāre, tuttāre, ture mamāyuḥ, puṇya jñāna puṣṭim, kuru svāhā. Om tāre tuttāre, ture mamāyuḥ, puṇya jñāna puṣṭim, kuru svāhā. Om tāre tuttāre, ture mamāyuḥ, puṇya jñāna puṣṭim, kuru svāhā. Om tāre tuttāre, ture mamāyuḥ, puṇya jñāna puṣṭim, kuru svāhā. Om tāre tuttāre, ture mamāyuḥ, puṇya jñāna puṣṭim, kuru svāhā. Om tāre tuttāre, ture mamāyuḥ, puṇya jñāna puṣṭim, kuru svāhā. Om tāre tuttāre, ture mamāyuḥ, puṇya jñāna puṣṭim, kuru svāhā. Om tāre tuttāre, ture mamāyuḥ, puṇya jñāna puṣṭim, kuru svāhā. Om tāre tuttāre, ture mamāyuḥ, puṇya jñāna puṣṭim, kuru svāhā. Om tāre tuttāre, ture mamāyuḥ, puṇya jñāna puṣṭim, kuru svāhā. Om tāre tuttāre, ture mamāyuḥ, puṇya jñāna puṣṭim, kuru svāhā. Om tāre tuttāre, ture mamāyuḥ, puṇya jñāna puṣṭim, kuru svāhā. Om tāre tuttāre, ture mamāyuḥ, puṇya jñāna puṣṭim, kuru svāhā. Om tāre tuttāre, ture mamāyuḥ, puṇya jñāna puṣṭim, kuru svāhā. Om tāre tuttāre, ture mamāyuḥ, puṇya jñāna puṣṭim, kuru svāhā. Okay, so that concludes our practice for today. Just posted the usual links into the chat, and we're going to go ahead and do the closing mantras. So nice long Om Lokā Samastā Sukhino Bhavantu 3 times, followed by Om Shanti Shanti Shantihi. And then I can stop the recording, and if you have any questions after that, feel free to ask at that time. Here we go. Loka samasta sukhino bhavantu. Loka samasta sukhino bhavantu. Loka samasta sukhino bhavantu. Om. Shanti, shanti, shanti. Namaste. Thank you all so much for joining in.